The CloudBox web portal is an all-in-one personal toolkit and is where most of CloudBox's features are. Here are some timestamps so you can go ahead and skip around if you need to find a particular part or section to watch. In the dashboard, let's start off with the KPIs. You can click on them to see how that works. Learn more about each KPI card by reading the text guide at the bottom of this tutorial page. The Reports tab allows me to switch between my SKUs and see historical trends based off the date and the location. I can switch between unit mode and weight mode to see exactly what their weight was or where their units were at. And I can also export the data based off a date range. The containers are all my CloudBox Smart containers that have currently been set up. From here, I can set alerts. This is where I can set weight alert thresholds so that if it exceeds or goes below these levels, I'll get a notification. I also have the unit alerts. If a container is in unit mode, then it'll also trigger a threshold alert depending on if it goes above or below. And unit weight deviation alert shows if any SKUs inside of a container are not supposed to be there. I can also group by SKU name. This is helpful if I have the same SKU in multiple containers. In the Inventory tab, this shows you all my current SKUs. I can go ahead and upload SKU data. From here, this will allow you to upload all your inventory and SKUs, so that way when you set up a container, it can automatically be found and make the setup process easier. You can go ahead and download a CSV template, which shows all the column headers and what they do, so that way you can go ahead and upload it yourself directly to CloudBox. As you can see, this is what is downloaded. We have category, name, tracking ID, unit weight, expiration date, and description. The category is simply just what kind of product or SKU you would like to categorize it as. The name is the actual name of the SKU. The tracking ID is our version of the SKU serial. The unit weight is what the weight of one unit will be. However, most of the time you won't have that, so this will probably be blank. The expiration date is when the date of the product or SKU is set to expire. And then just a brief description in the description column. You don't have to upload all of these. The only thing that is required is the actual name. Everything else is optional. However, you don't have to use our CSV template. If you have your SKUs or inventory lists exported as a CSV from your WMS or ERP system, you can simply just drag and drop it here. Here's an example of just uploading some SKUs directly into the template that we downloaded. Go ahead and upload it, and you will now need to map it. Since we downloaded the template, it'll already be mapped for you. Just as a recap, you can always see what the information is for each SKU column header here and what it is. The only one that's required is the name. At this point, click continue, and you'll see that all your SKUs are uploaded. You're good to go. I can also go ahead and edit the SKU manually right here. However, it's easier to do it using Link. I can also export the SKU data if I want to, or the container data. This is also where I can perform the cycle count function, which checks for any discrepancies inside of CloudBox versus any SKU list that you upload. So let's say I exported my current WMS or ERP's units, and I want to check for discrepancies between the WMS and CloudBox after conducting a cycle count. All I would have to do is upload the CSV file. I will now map it to the correct table columns. Since we use our template, it will do it for you automatically. And finally, the units. If you have some kind of discrepancy tolerance and you want CloudBox to avoid finding that discrepancy based off a percentage threshold that you give it, then you can go ahead and set it at this time. So for example, you exported a CSV list that had 20 units in it and you set this to 10%, then it would only find discrepancies if it had more than 2 units off. Now let's start. There are 2 discrepancies that are shown right here, which now allows me to reconcile the discrepancies. I can also go ahead and export it or start a new count. If I have any containers that have any alerts that are triggered, they will show up here in the Alerts tab. I can also add new container alerts within the page. There are 2 main types of alerts: threshold alerts and unit deviation alerts. The threshold alerts can either be set by weight or by units, so that if the inventory goes above or below the threshold, you'll get a notification. The deviation alerts is triggered when there's an item or SKU inside the container that's not supposed to be there. The Rooms tab allows you to see all the rooms that are currently set up. Rooms allows you to know where your inventory is within the facility after completing a cycle count. There is a big distinction between location and placement. Think of location as the building itself or the store where the items are located. For example, John Smith's grocery store. Think of placement of where that inventory is within the building. For example, storage room A, the vault, front of retail, warehouse rack B. That way you always know where your inventory is at all times. The Users tab allows you to invite users based off certain groups and permissions and give them a Cloudbox account. Depending on your plan, you may be limited to the amount of users that you can invite. Before you invite a user, create some roles. You can call this role whatever you like. At this point, you can assign certain roles and permissions to this role. So for this instance, we'll go ahead and give them the administrator role. That way they have access to everything. But maybe you don't want them to have permissions to everything. You can manually choose which permissions to give them. Once that role is created, you can go ahead and start inviting users using that role.